This is the third reading of the 2025 Woodstock Mayapple Writers Retreat. All poets this year. We didn't have any people from other parts of the writing universe. And we have three readers, and our first, Stephen Lewandowski, who retired after a 40-year career with various conservation agencies while publishing 15 large and small books of poetry and essays. His most recent is Ground Truth, Poems from the Field, collection of poems published by Cayuga Lake Books in Ithaca, New York. He hopes his poetry will interest students of natural history, biological sciences, geology, watersheds, and macroinvertebrates, which I guess is anything larger than a crayfish.
No. It's something, anything you can see is.
Oh, okay, anything that you can see. He has spent the majority of his life in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, whose preservation and protection he alternately desires and despairs. Stephen.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come to your leaderless workshops, if that's what they are. No, I mean, no question that they're leaderless, whether the workshops or not is another question. So I decided to talk. Do I need this? Decided to talk this. Do I need this?
You do for the.
Does your help?
Just wondering. I decided to talk about work, my work, other than poetry. But in poetry, of course. So I'll start off with three new things. But they're not new, of course. It's new to you. Work. Freshly 53, I walk the field's edge and work a shovelful free to drain a furrow away. The mud today seems friendly, clasping and drawing me free first into another world. Luckily, my companion insists we finish this job before moving on to others. Afterwards, we take half an hour by the truck with a pocket knife, cutting the clumps of mud away, and talk. So I worked for soil conservation, was in many ways my first real job in 1974, 75, let's say 1975, for 25 years. I worked with farmers primarily, although I did all the pond work that our office handled. I worked for both federal at the beginning, the USDA Soil Conservation Service, now known as the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and then with Ontario County, which is my birthplace, the Soil and Water Conservation District there. So this is about a pond site. Cross-examination. After, as part of my job, looking at the dry hole where they wanted a pond, examining its site and shortcomings, trying to explain to the landowners what might have gone wrong. Did they dig a test pit? Did they call me to look down in it? Do we know if the soil holds water? Now they want me to explain how they might get the bottom fixed to hold 10 feet of water. But who now pulls in his driveway? Who now pulls his pickup in, blocking the driveway behind me? But it's excavator, backhoe in tow. Mr. Bob, we're down to earth. Well. So that was only the beginning of the conversation, but not a friendly one, I'm afraid. And then we sometimes had to go, you know those boxes they put in trenches, the heavy duty metal boxes, and then you get over your head, or 4.5 feet. You're supposed to have one of those, and there's never time to get one of those in. So in the work we did, we just got it down in the trench. And this is about that. It's called Alive. which is sort of like that movie Alive, which was about the plane crash where all the people survived, you know. A glacier hid these polished stones like eggs in a nest, 8 feet deep and dark, before smoothing the land over. Beyond the reach of frost heave and weather that would roughen them, they stayed smooth as a baby's brow, but cold as clay. A backhoe's tooth breaks the soil's back and brings them to light. Warmed by the afternoon sun, how long before they hatch? Cracked open, they spill seeds of light across the hammer's face. I crouch in the trench, probing the wall with a blade for free water, when a caving bank crashes onto my head, and though the day is bright, stars come swimming out. I learned just how heavy a yard of soil is. Probably about a ton. My newest book from Cayuga Lake Books. Thank you, Judy, for the mention. Civil engineering. This is what I did, and notably without a license. It was a lot of my work was that sort of thing. Civil engineering, a devotional. One small quarry hill is turned into a pocket so that others may pave. Bank run gravel and crushed stone provide with gravity, drainage of water, and traction of wheels. We take for granted until it's gone. I met a guy at a party once who was bound for the University of Nebraska, where he was going to study traction exclusively. He wanted to end up in the Soil Conservation Service too. I live in the middle of Mennonite country, west of here. I don't know if you see Mennonites here. You see people together. No, not the way we do. Really, Rushville, where I live, is full of them and their horses and their horse shit, of course, which some people object to. But here's Mennonite country, late August. A boy, only glimpsed in passing, looks about 9, but probably small for his age, call him 12, wheels a mid-sized tractor around a homestretch curve in the field and back to the barnyard, trailing a huge gooseneck mower that's been expertly laying out alfalfa hay in broad, even swaths, where it will lie in the afternoon sun, through the night, morning dew, turning late tomorrow morning, and baled by afternoon. Another hay poem. Long dry spell, late July, upstate. Sounds familiar. For the horses of Belmont, Saratoga, Pimlico. The grains are ready for harvest early this year, both ripe and dry. Short oats have lost their blue-green algae color. Now, sallow as some aging blonde beach bunny's sun-bleached hair. Bearded wheat and rye catches the wind, swimming on supple off-white stems. Harvested, grains go direct to storage, then market, but their coiled straw stands in sealed bales like so many vegetable sausage monuments in the shorn field, as long as the weather holds. In the market for straw, racehorses get only the best, though they have no choice. To eat, they're fed the grains sweetened with molasses and pellets of high-protein alfalfa, breakfast of champions. The groom, trainer, owner, and even the tiny vain jockey have a say. Give us no hay, they say. Well, it's really straw that's been rained on. Premium hay. White. 7:20 a.m., late January. I was called out this morning from the dark. Didn't want to go, but got underway. In the owl light, an owl crossed my path with low wing beats, laboring from dark woods to dark wood. Great claws drawn up against its breast. Working backwards through books. Backseat compost heap, or how I became a naturalist. 2 raincoats, 3 pairs of boots, barn, bean, and leather. Felt hat with leather band, lock cap with bill. Hooded sweatshirt, yellow on green from Becker's Tree Service, and goose down vest. Piles of paper, wetlands delineation notes, environmental assessment, secret papers, DEIS, letters and poems, scripts and scraps, binders and folders. Purple, soft plastic insulated lunchbox containing music tapes. Blue emergency down throw, rolled and velcroed into a bundle. Anvil clippers and collapsible saw. Pens, pencils, markers, survey, flagging, pipes and cough drops, sunglasses, 100-foot measuring tape in day glow coil. Chainsaw, ironwood short stick for self-defense or euthanasia. Insulated travel coffee cup with talk. Scant 1/2 quart Citgo 5W30 motor oil. 3 pairs of gloves, blue knit nylon, plain deerskin and insulated buckskin. Leather cased binoculars hanging by a strap from the head support. A compass is set on the top. And don't ask me about the trunk. So I did a lot of survey on land on projects and a lot of design on projects that someone with a backhoe or a bulldozer or hand built. And then came back when they were half built or 3/4 built and did a check on them to see if they were built correctly, because the government, one way or another, was paying for up to half of them. And occasionally found things that the operator somehow had managed to go very much awry. And the worst was when they went too deep. It's hard to fill in a trench like that, really. But this is apart from that work. This one's called 3 Coats Weight. Closeted sports coats affirm my professional status, each with a name and a purpose. The little professor, the helpful expert, the friendly inspector. This morning, I believe I need the little professor. Tweety, more than half worn out, bought from the Volunteers of America store and patiently waiting for duty. I slip on the sleeves and hunch up my body to convey that person so wrapped is carrying important and authoritative information all buttoned in. Leather elbow patches would be a bit much. Gray, blue, brown, heathery fibers, cloth woven suitable for any occasion, whether worn with almost any color combination of shirt, tie, and slacks. I slip into it. Now listen up. That's an exaggeration, of course. Did work on streams in a natural condition without bulldozing them or with kids with macroinvertebrates, which is why that notion was there. Which are creatures without a backbone, but large enough to see with the naked eye. If you get it down to a microscopic level, then you're and they do indicate water quality. So they're an initial way to get into a stream and say whether things are good or bad there. If you get only intolerant things like leeches, that means the water has some problem. It's not carrying diversity of critters. You can find mayflies, stoneflies, and caddisflies. Then you can go someplace else. Finding a note from myself. I filled many paper scraps with quickly written notes, so it should be no surprise to open the insulated lunch bag in the back seat, once used to keep water samples chilled, and find an old note. Naples Creek sample at Bridge Route 245, 10/26/98, 6:50 a.m., 51.534 centimeters. That means the flow, the height of flow from the known place. Scrap torn from a notebook page has traveled several years and miles, returned to my hand as reminder of checking the meter, then dipping a bottle in the cold flow one fall morning about daybreak. In the stream, a small dark snake sinuously swims, pursues minnows, catching and eating one head first. It's a pretty healthy stream. Judy's book, Underfoot. The reason for underfoot is that when you're working in barnyards, say, it's incumbent on you to keep an eye on where you're stepping. We did work with barn roofs, catching the runoff from barn roofs and putting them into pipes, usually pretty big pipes, a lot bigger pipes than the farmers wanted, to keep them from washing the manure out of the barnyard. Summoning up my job. The outfits I worked for had long names adding to the local alphabet soup, but accurately describing their function. When I answer the phone, I'd shorten them up to a few key words. After I said soil conservation, sometimes there'd be a pause, followed by a querulous voice. It must have been the fault of my awful upstate accent. It'd say, soul conservation? Then perversely, I'd say, yes, who are you calling for? Summer job dedicated to Barbara McClintock, who got a Nobel Prize for her work in corn genetics. She was not a geneticist. She was not allowed to be a geneticist. She was a corn breeding specialist. But her work got out of hand and found its way to Sweden, apparently. So despite what her title was, she did some good work. Counting blue leafhoppers in the whorl of a corn leaf before and after application. Staring still down into the green vortex. Agricultural Stabilization and Conservation Service. Rain on and off all day long. The last day to certify fields for the set-aside programs. Farmers file in, joking and scuffling the rug, jostling rows of metal filing cabinets. Hauling big leaf manure, of course. Francis Van Opdorf, 1934 to 2006. There's the stone in the middle of this field. I know because I helped put it there. The road used to curve around it, going this way past. But when we moved here in 46, I was just a boy. We dug a hole right alongside it, worked the stone loose, and dumped it in, covered it over. Now you see, in this field, we got even rows, and the road goes straight through. He had about 2.5 feet of soil. He could hear, I was talking to him afterwards, he could hear his plow skipping along the top. So I guess the stone was less than 2.5 feet. The hat. Old Jim always wore a suit, tie, white shirt, and a hat. You'd never see him without his hat. He'd visit a job and maybe see something he didn't like. Why, he'd take off his coat, roll up his sleeves, and get right up on the dozer to run it himself. When he'd get really mad, he'd snatch off his hat, throw it on the ground, and jump right on it. One day I saw him fire his best operator. He visited a job over in Galen and didn't like the work his man was doing. He started to yell, snatched off his hat, threw it on the ground, but before he could jump on it, the operator did. Know your employer, I guess. Fit and form. Field of red clay soil officially designated Schoharie. Sticks, oh yes, to machines and hooves. Great clods forming on boots to pant legs, yes, and streaks smears as it climbs to face and hands. Pliant and plastic. Deceptive soil sometimes, seeming to give way, sometimes baked hard as stone. It becomes slick as a mink with an inch of rain. Brings all operations to a sliding, rutting halt. Turned over in the fall, it's prone to lumps and clods, absolutely demands the fitting services of harrow and crusher. With heavy equipment, you have to know to the minute when to get on and off. Working it demands patience and skill, like you observe in the master potter's hands, forming clay up from the blob on the wheel into a light and balanced bowl.
See, you're really out of time.
Got that? In that case, I'll do one more. I thought I had more time than that.
Coming up on half hour.
That's where I want to be. Exactly. How to become ashamed. Who's that? That you, Les? Yeah. And you've heard this before? Oh, okay. This has a long epigraph by Dwayne Deuce Bowen, who wrote One More Story, Contemporary Seneca Tales of the Supernatural. So I live in Seneca Country. Not Seneca County. Says, Deuce does, the reason I've written this manuscript is simply for the purpose of writing it. I am a Seneca Indian. I want to say this. Usually when an Indian pens any item, there seems to be an automatic feeling that he or she is attempting to make a cultural statement, a racial statement, or a statement to preserve a certain item. I'm not making any such claim. I simply want to share some tales of the supernatural with whoever will read them. However, I do feel there is a uniqueness in the fact that the stories compiled in this brief collection are entirely Indian, told by Indians to Indians. They are not cultural, they're not sacred, they're simply stories. I write solely from my feelings and experiences. An old friend calls me on a bright sunny morning, 10 a.m., not a cloud in the sky. We have some small talk before she gets down to cases. She asked if I know anyone who can help her with a problem. You see, she has had trouble with neighbors over 4 white cedars growing close to their property line. The neighbors want them moved or cut down. that she has seen something coming from these trees, a blue ball of light, which she believes has caused her to injure her back and gave her cancer, which she fought off with a doctor and a surgeon. Do I know a Native American healer or spiritualist or seer or witch, I ask? No, not a witch, but anyone who can help her. This thing was put on her years ago by a Cherokee spirit healer, a woman who didn't like her and has since died and can't be asked to take it off. She says, I need someone to take it off. All I can describe is a hovering blue light. When any harm comes to these trees in my garden, I am also hurt. I say I know no one willing to help her, whether an Indian or not. Not Porter, she asks. No, definitely not Porter. Porter is a Bear Clan Seneca Longhouse faithkeeper and has no truck in these matters with either white folks or Cherokee witches. Well, what can I do? She asks, and I say, you must find out what this light wants and let it have what it wants. It's coming to you for help in getting something. But I don't know what it wants, she says. You have to find out. How would I do that? You must get some tobacco to burn and pray for whatever she prays to for help. I can't tell her who to pray to because I've never known, but you can't do any harm. Don't talk to others about what's troubling you. That could hurt you even more. But I don't have any tobacco, do you? You can get tobacco for yourself. No, someone has to give me tobacco. Who are you talking to? Back home, I get on my jar of tobacco. Bought long time ago, when after a poetry reading near Salamanca, I was paid $75. I stopped for gas at a smoke shop where they had a bushy face mask hanging up for sale for $75. I bought it, a tank of gas and a pouch of tobacco to feed it. I've been told since by people who know better that since I'm in no way an Indian, I have no right to own a bushy face, but I do and feed it tobacco. I give her tobacco in an old bugle can, blue with a bugler in black on the label. I give her a small packet of shreds and chips, ribbon from a lightning-struck poplar, so she can lay out the fragments in her doorways and on the windowsills and pray. Can't do any harm. I give her a lozenge of limestone smooth and spit out from being worried by the last glacier, and ask her not to talk about such things anymore, already too much talk. I inspect the 4 white cedars and say, don't allow them to be cut. Why? Because it will make you sick. Thank you.
Our next reader is Robert McDonough, longtime participant in the Saginaw and now Woodstock Writers Retreat. You and Helen are probably carrying the record for that. And he has published 1 book and 1 chapbook. After many years of teaching English at Cuyahoga Community College in Cleveland, Ohio, he now lives in Bridgeport, New York.
This is, how's that? This is an erasure poem called Erasure. Monday, 12:30 a.m. Dear, yesterday, Sunday, didn't meet at all. A day I don't see or talk to is not a good day. I hope movements a better aligned today, but even more, I hope, getting better. If the weather is as predicted, I want to grill sausage and corn and then have biscuits, strawberries, and whipped cream. I hope can have that meal. Love, Bob. I'm afraid to read this poem. I'll read it. If people will like it or hate it. Women akimbo, not arms only, but legs, sitting folded within them, or between, one tucked to each side, standing crane-like, or rubbing a heel against a back while watching TV. I find a grace beyond grace in this fluid production of the impossible. And I think it's in the hips to be able to bear babies. Good idea. Chamber music. Playing viola or second violin, I'd be inside the music where I could listen and look around, see what's going on. I wouldn't even want one of those deals where two players switch seats from one piece to the next. Proud, then proud of being humble, proud again. That would have been a fine life for me if I could play. Window, door, mirror. Window. Teachers saw a little girl from a broken family, raised by the parent disqualified by gender. Door. The one person ever inside my perimeter is out in the world now. Mirror. Now I've only myself to decide for. Okay, so this poem is written by me and edited by Lisken, and I have versions edited by other members of the workshop, and I haven't decided which I like. But it's a list, and all I knew was that the list was completely out of order and needed help. Why poetry workshop moderators need concealed carry too. 1, being right isn't always enough. 2, to beat out meters for rhymesters with no ear. 3, who knows what they've been reading? 4, the Second Amendment rules. Have you seen some of these people? I could star in my own comic book. Bang! I assume in this audience, everybody knows who Mahler was. And Richard Wiener I doubt he still is, the longtime chief percussionist for the Cleveland Orchestra. Richard Wiener shakes them up. Cleveland plays the Mahler Sixth. The percussionist returns so calmly from business off stage that many must not have noticed he was gone. He is the man. He still has major noise to make. But Mahler wanted cowbells like the last earthly sounds heard from the valley far below by the departing spirit on the mountaintop. And that's what Mahler just got. But now it's fate, the meeting unavoidable of man, hammer, and the huge box that looks like a slate gray house for the hound of heaven. When he steps on the chair and settles the mallet in his hands, it belongs there. Now he raises it, smashes it down, and half the audience starts out of their seats. But he gets down, unplugs his ears, and strolls over to the music to see where they are. He sits down and waits. He'll be back, and this time, no one will be surprised, which is, after all, a small part of what Mahler is saying. We decided at this afternoon session to call this poem After All. And it starts with a quotation from Adam Phillips in the book Going Sane. And the quotation becomes a prompt. It's never breath. After all, what would happen if everyone started listening at once? At first, meaning seemed to disappear. Nothing could be heard. Then weather grew louder and brighter. The wind rushed around, water fell, blood throbbed because they couldn't not. The universe ticked along, glowing, complete. Then someone cleared a throat. Then someone found a pen. It's a poem more like the I Ching or a fortune cookie. Though usually shorter than the one and longer than the other, it need not be. It is looser than the fortune cookie. Is it tighter than the I Ching? It probably better be. When a fortune cookie tells you what to do or what will happen, you do it or don't. It does or doesn't. The I Ching asks you to feel. When a poem tells you to do or think, read it again. Are you content? It's a fortune cookie. Or read it again. Now I will finish with the only two of my poems that I have memorized because they're short. I didn't try to memorize them. I just read them so often and they're short. First poem, first three words are both the title and the beginning of the first sentence, which is the only sentence in the poem. Himalayan jay thrushes mate for life. Each couple working out their own song so intricately that the human voice that the human ear cannot distinguish their voices when they sing together, and they will not sing when alone. And because Leslie laid down the law that you can't have an introduction longer than the poem, I'm going to give you postscript longer than the poem because I think it's interesting. Um, there are scientists who study birdsong, of course, there would be. And the problem was how, you want to be able to tell which is the male song and which is the female song. But if you just put them on two perches, you'll be able to tell. So you put them in two glass boxes. And of course they would, if you put them in separate rooms, they won't sing but two glass boxes, they see one another, they sing, and the scientists can distinguish the songs. The next one is Words for a Daughter, and I would now include granddaughters in the title. And it starts with an absolutely accurate epigraph because I wrote it in my book as soon as the two of us got to Turtle Park. Bob, when I'm real old, I might say, I'm ready. And then you'll say, let's go. And then we'll die. Katie, age 3.5. Love and work. A good man, some children, a job that fits your hand and lasts, a tough mind. Die knowing we were never meant to live in this world. There is no other. Thank you.
Our last reader this afternoon is new to this retreat. I had the pleasure of publishing her most recent book, which was the first manuscript I remember getting that I didn't find anything to edit. Not the sequence, not the punctuation, no typos. It was amazing. Lisken Van Pelt Dus, her most recent collection of books, How Many Hands to Home? Mayapple Press 2025. It joins What We Are Made Of from Cherry Grove 2016, and two chapbooks, Everywhere at Once and Letters to My Dad. Raised in England, the US, and Mexico, she now lives in Western Massachusetts, where she teaches writing, language, and martial arts. Listen.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Woodstock Library. Thank you, everyone who's here. And many thanks to my workshop mates this week. It's been really terrific, and I'm looking forward to a couple more days of it. So I have decided just to read from books. So no newer work, unlike Bob, who I admire for bringing the fresh stuff. And I'm going to go in the opposite order from what Steve did. We're going to work from earlier books to the newest. So first, a couple of poems from What We're Made Of, a collection from 2016. First one is called In Both Hands. Like one of the Magi bearing gifts, for 2 nights in a row I have shown up with a turtle. And no good reason for it, no one to give it to. Even in the dreams I have been puzzled, cradling the creature in both hands, its mottled carapace domed like a miniature arc of earth, tessellated with tectonic plates. Well, it drifted to me somehow, and so I carried it. I have nothing to say to those who question me about it. Exploration is an act of will initially, but then you just have to take what you get and tend it, From favorite coffee mug to high wind sponging the sky, gray on gray. Even the neighbor yelling at his dogs or his wife is a gift, something that belongs to this life only. I don't remember if my turtle stuck his head out from his roof, but I think he must have. I think it was me with the closed eyes. I called Marco, and his voice answered, Polo, Polo. And when I found him, I brushed pollen from his shell into the breeze, and I brought the turtle with me wherever I was going, surprised at how little a life weighs, though it fills up both my hands. And I think I'm going to read this one because I think a couple of people in my group may appreciate the tone. This is what I used to call a wild ride poem. All right, so it's called Lineage. It's sort of especially for lessons. Lineage. 12 generations ago, a man with your name stepped onto America. And it was days before the ground stopped rocking, but he strode on westward and procreated in the new land full of sky and migrations. You wake from a dream where another man with your name flies between two women on wings more like a crow's than a butterfly's, until the morning whir of the coffee grinder wakes you. Over coffee, you read about a small oil spill. You wonder if it will make national news and if you could get your name cited by rescuing a loon or staging a one-person rally in favor of self-sufficiency. Like the time you streaked in Zermatt in an inebriated ritual to banish fog from the Matterhorn. Only the Swiss media paid no attention. Your only satisfaction from a Brit, muttering, bloody brave, over raclette and Riesling. He shook your hand and said goodbye almost mournfully, reminding you of the stray dog years before that materialized from deep Maine darkness and trotted beside you all the way to the highway, where you left him for a ride and he howled after you. When you get up from the breakfast table, you go out to the garden and harvest leeks, which you offer to your wife like long-stemmed roses. And she accepts them and kisses you and whispers your name. Here, I brought my timer up and forgot to start it, so how many minutes?
You're fine.
In that case, maybe I'll do one more from this book, in a very different vein. This is, I do mostly free works, but sometimes I work in form. And this is a pantoum. It's called The Queen of Hearts. It wasn't berries that we had in mind, hiding in thigh-high grasses, nuzzling the rustling haze of summer. Nothing in our senses hiding in thigh-high grasses, but each other and the tremor of heat. We had nothing in our senses but the air sizzling with crickets and bumblebees, each other and the tremor of heat. We submerged ourselves, left the air sizzling with crickets and bumblebees, entered a world dark, cool, attenuated. We submerged ourselves, found, to our surprise, a field of swollen strawberries in their own world, dark, cool, attenuated, and slow like memory. Surprise, a field of swollen strawberries. What could we do but pick them, side by side, slow like memory, and take them from the meadow? What could we do but pick them? The tarts will be delicious, will taste of meadow and of being taken, and of the longing gathered from our fingertips. The tarts will be delicious. Taste the rustling haze of summer, the longing gathered from our fingertips. Berries and all that we had in mind. All right, next a couple from Letters to My Dead, which is a chapbook, came out in 2022. There's a little bit of it is literally letters to my dead, so addressed to, not explicitly, but addressed by default to various of my beloved dead. And it's also a little bit of a pandemic year journal. So the first one is called Advice. You always believed we were both exceptional, but this kind of accolade depends on how you define goodness, doesn't it? Now that you're dead, and I will be one of these days, and neither one of us among those few remembered beyond 100 years, what do you advise? There's been a quarantine on, so I've been home a lot with more time to make choices. And if goodness involves results, scratch exceptionalism. I'm ordinary as piles on my office floor, dust gathering everywhere. America, too, proving itself an exception to its own mythology, its rough spirit splitting its soul like a log destined for fire. You told me you'd lived a good life, but by then you meant it had been good to you. You took less credit than you used to. Thanks for the advice. And another one from this called Election Day. 2020. It's election day, and it's a doozy. Everyone on both sides with so many toes and fingers crossed, we're all in knots. I'm thinking about sides and wondering how it looks from where you are. The other side, we call it, across a barrier that doesn't seem so different from political divisions these days, almost impossible to imagine thinking the other way. Did the dissolution of your flesh dissolve in and out, is and is not, this side and that? I don't want to feel adversarial. I swear I'm still motivated by love as you would insist of me. When I walked the tracks today past the beaver pond, almost nothing was stirring, only some robins eyeing me askance as they lumbered from one branch to the next. The walk was necessary. For a brief moment, I could be part of the stillness, something entire without any concept of sides. Probably don't have to tell you that. But you'll appreciate the bare twig lying on my path, one branching snaked in 4 tight switchbacks, delicate and elegant gray determination to grow however it could. It would have been easy to carry home, almost weightless. But I left it there, its tangles, its already deadness, the shape its life had taken. Then I thought I would just do sampling from a beautiful book that Judy produced for me, How Many Hands to Home. And I decided, in terms of choosing which ones to read today, I decided I would just read the ones that I sent her initially as the query. That she responded to and asked for the full manuscript in return. Seemed as good a way to choose as any. So first one, let's really give you my page numbers. First one is called The Fire Responds to Questioning. The fire responds to questioning. Yes, I was there. No, I did not call for help. I don't know how it started. What I remember is warming into being. First my extremities, fingers of light flickering, then only a gust of wind, and suddenly I was everywhere, burning with hunger. Linen drapes flared yellow and glowed behind me. Books smoked. A woolen armchair sputtered orange, while a pair of cranes on a Chinese silk screen shrank from me. The cranes smelled like charred meat. The books blackened. No, I didn't content myself with the library. I spread out, made myself at home, tried each bed, filled each dresser. Understand, I hardly had time to think. Someone dreamed me into life, and all I knew was doubling, every 30 seconds, doubling. Tell me, what do you know of how you began? What did you burn as you grew? Next one is called The Universe Considers Loss. First poem, so that first one was from the first section. This one's the first poem in the second section of the book. The universe considers loss. Last night, the treetops wiped a piece of sky clean like a deep blue blackboard as they flounced in the air, in the wind, shaking their leaves into the air. Dark gray removed, we could see inside the sky, clear through the atmosphere to where nothing is, mostly enormous nothing, punctuated by fires and rocks, all minute in the scheme of the universe. In this scale, a stone is a stone is a stone, casting small ripples of gravity to hold its surface, or maybe even us, to its core, as it hauls its way toward an ever-receding edge with whatever lies outside nothingness. Come, we'll share the heavy lifting of grasping so much of so little. As usual, we'll find ourselves capable of much more than we could have imagined possible. That's true of many things. We keep waiting for the rest of our dead ash trees' limbs to come down, but they refuse to snap, even in winds like we had last night. The music the leaves made dancing was the sound of erasure. First, there were clouds, and then none. No, that's not it. First, there were clouds, and then the clouds changed form. Not empty, only invisible, transparent, so we could acquire stars. One from the third section. The third section has a lot of migrant stories. So this one is called Miguel. And it's in 6 short sections, some very short, some one-liners, a couple of them a little longer. Miguel, 1. You asked me why I didn't look back. I was afraid to. What if God punished me, like Lot, turned me into a pillar or a tree? Or turned you into a tree and me into a bird without flight feathers, blown along the ground away from you, never rising high enough to see a horizon on whose other side I can at least imagine you. 2. Think of me when you turn out the light. 3. You can't believe how cold it is here. My breath is ice-locked, cups me from inside. I wrap myself in all the clothes I have, but I am glass, ready to shatter. 4. Do you still sing every morning while you are dressing? When I think of you, I hear melody like honey or light streaming through stained glass, like the sunman in Toluca, golden fire, bright song reaching. 5. Night, I try to remember us together, but all the space between us comes down to one line, drawn west to east, as if with thick black marker. 6. Pray for us. So from the 4th section, one called those towns lined with empty factories. We have a lot of these up in Western and Central Mass. I imagine there's some in proximity to where each of you lives. One of those towns lined with empty factories. Towns where once the factories defined what it was to be human. Factories processing widgets and time cards punched by pale humans, humans and machines whirring and clicking like windmills, metal winding machines like windmills. I knew a human who was wound by a winding machine when the safety platform failed. Her body banded by the scars she lived with afterwards, her matchstick frame compacted. In places along the river, there are gaps where there used to be factories. Now there is nothing, but if you follow the river, you'll reach a quarry. Once they carved marble out of the quarry. They pulled slabs and dimension stone out of the quarry. The marble was the quarry. The money from the marble was the quarry. Now the quarry is filled with water. The water filling the quarry is unbearably cold. The marble must be unbearably cold underwater. The marble once cut for tombs lies underwater. I knew a human who waded into the hole. It was so clear and so beautiful and cold, and the marble blocks so sharp at the bottom of the quarry. And what was he supposed to do? There were no jobs at the factories any longer. What was a human to do? No jobs cutting marble any longer, no money. This human so beautiful, and now nothing. And I will finish with a couple from the last section, which a little bit more upbeat. Last section kind of moves towards love. So this one is called You Taught Me. You taught me that violence is inevitable, though the hawk has waited without success, perched on its branch for more than an hour as we watched through the kitchen window, its rust-mottled breast, yellow beak, its sure conviction. And love inevitable too, how we are drawn together when apart, sky and earth curving and flexing like iron filings between the magnets of our desire. And when together, sex not entirely unlike the swoop of the hawk, the grip and the claw. And that when it is real, love is all there is. Body love, hate love, soul love, branches still bare from winter, and the whole world visible, on guard for ravishing. All right, and to finish up, the last poem in the book, called Ode to the Universe. And for the poets among you, I'll just share the generative process of this poem. I wanted to write an ode to the universe, so I decided, well, what one vowel sound represents that best, and what one consonant sound represents that best, the universe. And I'll let you figure out. All right, Ode to the Universe. Because why not? Oh, most opalescent everything, mine of every known mineral, every unknown element, every imaginable, oh, and then some. Because you're the only modest proof we have of, well, almost anything. Maybe not so modest. Enormity inviolate, embodied, a giantess beyond our mortal scope. Because you birth horizons, mermaids, muddy brooks, black holes, because of silver, magnets, poems. Because I've loved in you whole lifetimes, moved by the smell of hazelnut or dough rising, roused by a lifting murmur, do, re, mi, as I were tuning fork, song in motion. Because you let the moon foreshadow us, our growth, our fall, our need for orbit. Because you hold us, every molecule.